Okay, we are recording Zoom session here on inner ear, and let's take a peek at our notes and PowerPoints for that particular topic. Shrink this. Here's your notes for inner ear anatomy. And what we're covering in this Zoom session and next week is just inner ear anatomy, not inner ear physiology, not how it all works. Really, the inner ear is really the center of the universe when it comes to hearing. It holds the keys to everything. If you haven't got an outer ear or have outer ear pathology, you have a little bit of hearing loss. If you have middle ear pathology, you can get quite a honker of a hearing loss. But if you've got no inner ear, you're deaf. And the inner ear is the final transduction. And when we think of transduce, that word T-R-A-N-S-D-U-C-E, transduce, which means to change energy from one form to another. So in summary, the outer ear gathers sound, the middle ear changes sound waves into mechanical piston-like energy because of the pushing of the oval window, the stapes in and out of the oval window of the cochlea. The cochlea, or inner ear, changes mechanical energy into hydraulic energy, which is water or fluid waves. And those fluid waves are transduced or changed into electricity by the hair cells inside the cochlea. So once again, outer ear gathers sound, middle ear changes the sound waves into piston-like mechanical energy. The inner ear takes that mechanical energy and changes it into fluid hydraulic energy. And then that fluid hydraulic energy is changed into electrical current by the tiny hair cells of the inner ear. And electricity is the language your brain understands. So that's really, the ear is a series of transducers. It's a series of changes of energy from one form to another. Now, the other thing we've got here is the PowerPoint on the inner ear. So all the way at the tippy top, when we're looking at a cochlea here and the balance organs, take a good look at this thing here. What we're looking at on the left, the pink, is the balance organs. Now, this is actually the right ear. Okay, the tip of this cochlea, this orange, is the cochlea. Balance is in pink, hearing is in red here, and the point of the cochlea is aimed toward the back of your eyes. Okay, and so you can see that the cochlea is more medial or more center to the head than the balance organs are a little bit more like cauliflower sticking out a bit toward the sides. At any rate, this would be the, the oval window pushes in and out of the, goes in and out, and so does the round window. The action of hearing takes place in the cochlea. Balance takes place over here. We will cover both of those to some degree. And that gets to be another tricky part. So why don't we just go back over to here for a second. I will escape. We'll pull up the notes and let's read. I'll get my glasses on so I can see. Take a look at my holy rock again. Okay, here we go. Bony and membranous labyrinths. Bony, well, means in the bone. Membranous means you can squeeze it, membranes. And the vestibular system is the balance system. That's what's called vestibular. The balance system and cochlea both are located in the petrous portion of the temporal bone. Recall the temporal bone. Put your finger behind your ear. Feel that bone. That's part of your temporal bone, but that's the mastoid portion. That's the soft, porous, it's got all these little holes in it. It's pneumatic. It has time. It's not very dense. But if you go further medial, further inward, that temporal bone, you get to the petrous portion. And you'll recall the petrous portion, the name Peter, the apostle, the rock, okay? Petra in Greek means rock. The petrous portion is the hard, dense portion of the temporal bone. And the cochlea and balance organs are located in the petrous portion of the temporal bone, whereas the middle ear and the outer ear are located in the less dense, the mastoid portion of the temporal bone. But look closely, they both have bony and membranous labyrinths. Let's take a look at the picture. Okay, think of the white here. Think of all the white on this slide as being solid bone. Okay, and then look at this yellow area here. That's a hole dug into the bone, much like an auger, like a twist. So if you think of the white as being solid bone, think of this yellow here as being a tunnel, like shaped like a snail, carved into the stone or carved into the bone. Same with the balance organs. This loop, and that third loop. You've got 3 loops. These are called semicircular canals, and they too are dug into the bone. They're tunnels or channels dug or carved into the bone. So it's imperative to remember that you can't hold a cochlea and balance organs in your hand, okay? Because it's a hole. It's like me telling you, go across the street and pull out the telephone pole. So you do. And then I say, okay, now give me the hole. I want the hole. So you'd have to dig around like an inch around and underneath and give me a great big cup-shaped piece of earth. I mean, literally, it'd be almost impossible to do. And that's why the cochlea and balance organs are very difficult to get at compared to the eye, which sits right here. Okay, so now those tunnels that are carved are called the bony labyrinths. They're labyrinths, they're caves, they're tunnels dug into the rock, into the bone, into the petrous portion of the temporal bone. But now look at the membranous portions. The membranous portions are these pink areas, and that's just like a balloon. You can squeeze it like okay, and same with the orange. That's membranous labyrinth. And it's like me digging a bunch of tunnels into bone, and now I'm snaking a hose into those curved tunnels. I'm snaking a hose. And the hose, okay, here's the hose, the pink. You see, so there's fluid inside the hose, which is the membranous labyrinth, and there's also fluid between the bone and the wall of the membranous labyrinths. So that fluid, I'll pull this up larger here, okay? The fluids are opposite. They're opposite in charge. And that's what a battery has. It has different fluids in it. And that's how a battery creates electricity. The whole purpose of the balance organs and semicircular canals is to create electrical currents from what's being given to them, because your nerves run on electricity. So the messages your brain are getting are electrical impulses. So bony labyrinth goes from here to here, and that's the main tunnel dug in the bone. And then the membranous labyrinth is the snaked hose that I'm sliding into the tunnel. It's smaller than the bony labyrinth, narrower, but it contains an opposite fluid. Okay, we'll escape out of here and now read where we were. The vestibular system and cochlea both are located in the petrous portion of the temporal bone. They both have membranous labyrinths located inside bony labyrinths. They both share the same fluids. And the 2 different fluids are called perilymph and endolymph. Lymph is fluid. So peri means around, the fluid around. And perilymph is similar to cerebral spinal fluid, the same fluid that surrounds your brain in your skull. The same fluid that surrounds your spinal cord in your back. That's cerebral spinal fluid. This has got more sodium and less potassium in it. You don't need to memorize which is which. But endolymph is opposite in chemical composition. It's got mostly potassium and less sodium. So which one has which? Let's look at the picture. Perilymph fills the bony labyrinth. It's all in this area that I'm showing you with my cursor. It's in this area, all this brown area. All those are the bony labyrinths, and they are filled with perilymph fluid. The hose inside the membranous labyrinth, these bubbles here, this pink stuff here, these two bags over here, and then this whole orange thing here, that's the membranous labyrinth, and that's filled with endolymph. Endo means inside, peri means around. So the fluid in the inner fills the membranous labyrinths, endolymph. The fluid surrounding the membranous labyrinths is called perilymph. So now you've got the bony labyrinths, membranous labyrinths, the fluids in each one, and the very general orientation of them. And that's what it says here. Bony labyrinths contain perilymph, membranous labyrinths contain endolymph, and both the balance organs and the cochlea, both balance organs and cochlea contain hair cells. Tiny little filaments. Hair cells. Okay? So both share the same fluids, both have a bony labyrinth, both have a membranous labyrinth, they share the same endolymph. So this pink here shares endolymph with the cochlea. The brown perilymph is shared with the perilymph here. And both balance organs and cochlea contain hair cells. Now, in the vestibular system, you have two kinds of hair cells. Type 1, type 2. And you'll see these words afferent, efferent. Well, let's just break things down here. Afferent means brain going. Efferent means from the brain back to the body. So if you have vision, that's going to your brain. Hearing is going to your brain. But how does your brain tell your muscles? How do you raise your arm? Well, your brain gives a message back out to your limbs to raise your arms. Okay? That's an efferent message. So sensory information goes to the brain. Motor information to your muscles goes from the brain. Messages going to your brain are called afferent. I always think at. It's going at the brain. Okay, that's where A and A. That's what I do. Efferent, X, out. Okay, exit. Efferent is from brain back to body. Afferent is from the body to the brain. Okay, now let's go back to share screen and our notes. The vestibular system has two types of hair cells. Type 1 hair cells take balance information and send it to your brain. Type 2 hair cells take information from your brain and sends that info back to your balance system. See, nothing is a one-way street. Your whole body is a two-way street. Inside the cochlea, you have two types of hair cells. And these aren't called type 1 and type 2. These are called inner and outer. Inner hair cells send info to the brain. They are afferent, A-F-F-E-R-E-N-T. Outer hair cells are efferent. They send info they take info from the brain. So inner hair cells send info to the brain, outer hair cells take info from the brain. So both the vestibular system and the cochlea have an afferent and efferent loop. They both talk to the brain, and the brain talks back to the system. Balance system has type 1 and type 2 hair cells that do that. The cochlea has inner and outer hair cells that do that. Okay, that's the general big picture. Now let's talk vestibular system and get that out of our system. This is kind of interesting. I remember a guy from across the street from me in Canada. He had joined the Army Reserve, and he really wanted to do duty in Afghanistan. His name was Rod. He wanted to go to Afghanistan. Well, by gum, he got his wish. He went to Afghanistan. He got wounded there. Anyway, he finally came back after a half a year. I said, "Hey, Rod, glad to have you back from Afghanistan." He goes, "I got that out of my system." I said, "I'll bet you got that out of your system." Just the way he said it. "I got that out of my system." Anyway, let's talk the vestibular system. Speaking of systems. You might as well joke around, otherwise it just becomes so boring. Okay, here we go. So, vestibular system, balance system. Let's get that out of our system. Human balance is a complicated thing. Balance is not just the balance organs of your ear. Balance contains 3 inputs. One is vision. Your eyes help you with balance. Another part of balance is your vestibular system in the ear. The third part of balance is kind of humorous. The third part of balance is in each muscle of your body. Your muscles have fibers, right? When you're eating beef or pork, you can sometimes see the fibers in it. Well, in each muscle, there's one fiber that doesn't deal with what the rest of the muscle does. It tells the brain where your limbs are in space without you looking. Now, DUI, driving under intoxication. Cop pulls you over. "Sir, I don't know if you've been drinking. How much have you had? Oh, I just had a beer." Step out of the car. What I want you to do is put your arm out to the side. Put your arm out there. Now close your eyes. What I want you to do is to touch the tip of your nose. And the guy's doing this stuff. You're drunk. Okay? If you can't close your eyes and touch the tip of your nose without looking, see, that's called proprioception. That's the third part of balance. It's knowledge of where your limbs are in space. Where are your limbs in space without you looking? So you can tell that your foot, that your knee is lifted up. If you've lifted up a knee, I can tell that my hand is about the height of my face. I can tell now my hand is about the height of my eyes. I can tell now my hand is about the height of my hairline. I mean, I can tell now my fingers sort of pointed toward my ear. Proprioception, knowledge of where your limbs are in space without you looking. Okay, so that plus vision plus your vestibular systems, that 3-part thing is your balance system. So your vestibular system is 1/3 of your balance. Now a stool needs 3 legs to stand. So if you take away one of those limbs, you've got trouble. So people with vestibular problems, they're really using their eyes and their proprioception. They're relying on those other 2 legs a lot. And people with vestibular problems have big time problems at night with balance because you can't see as well at night. So you lose orientation. They're the ones falling down on pathways at night. They're always there, "Oh, I can't go, I got really balance problems at night." That means they have vestibular problems. They're relying on their eyes more, and at night you can't see as well. So vestibular system, balance, back to our notes. So vestibular system, balance, see if I get the right set of glasses here. Okay. Proprioception is knowledge of where your limbs are in space without looking. And then I said here, Google up the Romberg test for drinking and driving. Stretch out your arm, close your eyes, now touch your nose. That's what I was doing. But put a star by this. Vestibular system, vision, proprioception. Those 3 things together give you human balance. Okay? Now let's just look at the vestibular system itself. Let's just look at this guy right here. That's what we're looking at. There are 3 parts to that system. Okay, one's called the saccule. Look where my cursor is. The saccule. The other one's called the utricle. Saccule means little sac. Utricle means little uterus. Now, don't ask me. I didn't make it up. Okay, these are little bags, little sacs. And the third part of your vestibular system is these 3 semicircular canals. 3 semicircular canals. So you have the utricle, the saccule, and the 3 semicircular canals. Those 3 parts make your vestibular system of the ear. Now the utricle and the saccule, what are they good for? What do they do? The utricle and the saccule help you tell linear acceleration. Have you ever been sitting in a car at a stoplight and suddenly the car beside you is moving and you're not sure if it's you moving or if it's the car backing up? You got to kind of take a look-see. You're not sure. Okay? Your utricle and saccule are in action there. You ever stand in an elevator and suddenly the elevator starts rising, your stomach kind of, and then when the elevator and then stops, you get that, okay? Utricle and saccule are working. Utricle and saccule are detecting acceleration this plane and acceleration that plane, and I don't know which one does which. I don't really care. That's what they do. They help your body detect linear acceleration and stopping. That's how you can tell you're suddenly moving and you're suddenly stopping without looking. Utricle and saccule. Now look at the semicircular canals. The semicircular canals are a trip. Notice how they are at right angles to each other, how they're completely perpendicular to each other. How many dimensions do we have in space? Length, width, and height. Okay, a room has length, width, and height. So when you look at the corner of a room, if you look at the corner of a room and the floor, look at a corner of a room and the floor, you'll see 3 planes. One wall, the other wall, and then you're going to see the floor. So essentially, you're going to see, there's the floor, one wall, and the other wall. How can I show you? You know, you got a corner and a floor. Those are called orthogonal planes. They're at 90-degree angles to each other. Okay? They're orthogonal. O-R-T-H-O-G-A-N-O-L. Orthogonal. That means the 3 planes are at 90-degree angles to each other. Just like the corner of a room, or look up in here. Look up at my thing. Look at the top corner there. That's what I mean by orthogonal. Just what I'm pointing at. The corner, you can see the ceiling. You can see where the wall meets the door, where the door wall meets the other wall. You got 3 planes. They're all at 90-degree angles to each other. Well, that's what your semicircular canals are doing. They're at 90-degree angles to each other. What they are for is to help you tell where your head is in space. They're all about your head, because your head is a really weird thing. Unlike an elbow that just bends in one direction, or like a knee that bends in one direction, your head is like a swivel. It can go in any direction. So your 3 semicircular canals, because they are at orthogonal planes to each other, no matter how your head moves in space, no matter if it's just side to side, forward and back, or kind of a combination of the two, fluid is going to move in one or more of those semicircular canals. No matter which way you move your head, fluid is going to move in these semicircular canals. That's what helps you tell where your head is in space without you looking. Okay? Utricle and saccule, linear acceleration, whether left and right on a horizontal plane or up and down in a vertical plane, utricle and saccule. Semicircular canals, where your head is in space. How do they do that? Because they are at orthogonal planes to each other. Now let's look at our notes. Say the same thing. I think you'd swear I wrote this. Vestibule. That's the entryway into the chambers of the inner ear. Here, vestibule. Oval window. Here's the oval window. The stapes foot plate fits into that oval window. Here's the round window. Okay, here's the promontory. I guess over here would be the middle ear. Okay, where I'm circling. So you've got the oval window pushing into the stapes foot plate pushing into the oval window. When that pushes in, the round window bulges out. Okay. So now when we look, the vestibule is the entryway. That's where the oval window ends or opens into. This is the vestibule. Step into the vestibule, into the apartment. Quite. Vestibular system contains the utricle, saccule, semicircular canals. Utricle, leather bag, saccule, little sac, both are membranous labyrinths, both contain endolymph. They are surrounded by the vestibule. Well, look at it. They're surrounded by the vestibule, where the oval window pushes in. Bony, this is all the bony labyrinth, is the brown. The little bags here are the membranous labyrinths. Okay, they detect linear acceleration, up and down, elevator, sideways. Inside of these guys, inside of them, are these weird little hair cells and macula. Let's see if I've got a picture of that. So, oh, by the way, here's another picture. Now let's take a peek at this one here. Okay, I'll wait till that ugly black bar disappears at the top of my screen. Hopefully it goes away. But anyway, here's your semicircular canals, where I'm circling. Here's your utricle and saccule. And you can see the hair cell areas. Okay, the hair cell areas of the semicircular canals are these black barbells. Okay, and over here. And the hair cell areas of the utricle are here. And the hair cell areas of the saccule are here. And the hair cell areas of the cochlea is the membranous labyrinth here. All the way up. Interesting, in the cochlea, high frequencies are located here. Bass, low frequencies are located at the tippy top. Anyway, new slide. Inside, let's go inside the macula and inside the saccule. And you'll see these hair cells all sitting there, shaped like pears. And here's the hairs sticking out. Now, fluid surrounds all of this. The hair cells change fluid movement into neural messages, sending electrical messages up the nerve to the brain. And the hair cells of the macula, inside the utricle, saccule, here you go, here's your utricle, here's your saccule. All they're saying is inside of these, you'll have this. Fluid surrounds all of it, but also this is gelatin, just like Jell-O. I hate Jell-O. I don't see how anybody in his right mind can eat Jell-O. The flavor is okay. Don't mind that. It's the I can't stand it. It's just like gag me with a spoon. I can eat it if it's liquid. I can eat it as powder. I can even eat frozen popsicle Jell-O, but don't give me the blubber. It's whale blubber with food coloring and sugar in it. To me, it's just gag. Anyway, so you now know what not to get me for Christmas. Probably that's exactly what you'll do. You send me some packets of Jell-O. Thanks. Anyway, back to our system over here. If you take a look at the gelatinous stuff around the hair cells, and then look on the top. There's these weird stones stones. They're otoliths. Oto is ear, lith is stones. Ear stones. Now, have you ever heard of people talking about ear stones? I never had until I started testing hearing. And you get some of these elderly people, yeah, the doctor told me my ear stones have fallen off. I got balance problems. My ear stones have, I'm thinking, ear stones? What the hell are you talking about? Well, what they're talking about is that these guys, these have fallen off of the jello. And when they've fallen off of the jello, you no longer have the inertia. You no longer have the mass on top of the jello. So you get balance problems. And what they do in that case is they do head maneuver positions. Ear, nose, and throat doctors do this, and balance experts do this. And they'll try to tip the body and the head in certain ways to get the stones to lie back on the jello again. And it can be done. It's really weird. This can also happen inside the semicircular canals. Here again, here's a close-up. Here's the hair cell. Whoa, back, Jack. Here's type 1 cell. Here's type 2 cell. Afferent cell on the left. Efferent cell on the right. Here's the hairs on top of the hair cell. And these aren't like human hair. They really aren't as thick as hairs. They're way, 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 way thinner. Anyway, this is jello. And here's the ear stones on top of the jello. It's weird, I know. You're probably thinking, oh my God, why did I enter this field? Anyway, but that's generally some of the anatomy inside of the balance organs. The macula of the utricle and saccule. Again, here's the hair cells. Here's the hairs. The blue is the jello, and then you get the ear stones lying on top. And you're going to have that inside of your utricle and saccule. Semicircular canals, inside of them. Okay, inside of them. So let's go back to this slide here for a second. Here, this slide. We talked about these. Let's look at these barbells. Okay, when you look at the barbells, they also have a strange little set of hair cells. Their hair cells are inside these bumps called ampulla. They're at the bulbs. They're in the bulged bulbs at the end of the semicircular canals. Here, these bulged bulbs at the end of the semicircular canals. Those are called the ampullae. And look what they too have, jello on the top. And then they have stones laying on the top of that jello. And look, they have type 1, type 2 hair cells as well. Okay, here's your semicircular canal. Here's the ampullae, the bulge, the bubble. And inside the ampulla, you have your hair cells surrounded by jello. Doo-dee-dee-doo-doo-dee-doo. All right, here's another close-up of it here. You're looking at the bulged areas of the semicircular canals. Here's the bulged area. Inside are the hair cells surrounded by jello. When you turn your head, here's someone turning his or her head. These things move in one or more of those semicircular canals because they are at orthogonal angles to each other. So some message is going to hit your brain as to where and exactly how you twisted your head. Okay, let's go to our notes and finish it. Vestibular system, because we're not testing balance. The HIS doesn't test balance. Audiologists sometimes test balance. Samuel, the audiologist you work with, does he or she test balance or not? Yeah, they do that sometimes, and some audiologists don't. They just want to fit the hearing aids. They don't want to do the balance testing. They don't feel like it. Anyway, the 3 semicircular canals form 3 orthogonal planes. Blah 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 blah. They terminate in these enlarged bulbs called ampullae. Okay, ampullae are at the ends of the semicircular canals. Inside of each of them is a cristae, that bulge. You don't have to know what that word cristae is, it doesn't matter, but it contains type 1, type 2 hair cells, just like the utricle and saccule contain type 1, type 2 hair cells. okay? And ampullae detect angular acceleration and head motion in space. Perception of turning. Summary. Macula and cristae inside these balance organs contain type 1, type 2 hair cells. These correspond to inner and outer hair cells of the cochlea. Type 1 are afferent, type 2 are efferent. In the cochlea, inner hair cells are afferent, outer hair cells are efferent. Neither the vestibular system nor the cochlea is a one-way street. Es ist nicht eine Einbahnstraße. We have two-way streets here in Deutschland, yeah? All right, now we go back to damage to the vestibular system, because you will need to know basically some of these terms, all right? Because you will hear about them. As you are in your field, you might see letters from audiologists, you might see client files, and in the client files is case history. And we need to know a little bit about some of the damage to the vestibular system and some of the names of the tests that are done for this. So damage to the vestibular system results in vertigo. Nystagmus, that word nystagmus, circle it. Nystagmus means your eyes are kind of moving funny. Now think of this way. You're at a road and you're stopped at a railroad track. You've got to wait because the bar is down. Here comes the train. Okay. And what are you doing? You're counting cars. 1, 2, 3. That's nystagmus. You're tracking and then snapping back to center. Tracking, snapping back to center. You're counting the cars as they're moving. If someone were to follow your eye movements, then they'd be going. That's nystagmus. Greek for drowsiness. If you've got nystagmus, when you're not have any reason for it, you've got balance problems. Okay? And what they do in the test for you is they often do a test called electronystagmography. Now this test is really weird. Another version of nystagmus is a ballerina. A ballerina's twisting on her toe, and when she's twisting, she's always turning her head like this. Okay, she's tracking where she is as she's turning. Nystagmus. Anyway, electronystagmography, ENG. ENG is a test for balance problems. ENG, electronystagmography. And what they do is they put an electrode right beside your right eye, they put an electrode right beside your left eye, and they put another electrode right between your nose, right above your nose. That's the ground. Now, then they make you sit in a chair, and they make lights track like this across the room. And they're watching your eyes track. They're saying, look at the light, follow the light. And they're watching to see if your eyes are tracking, just like you are in front of a train that's moving, you're counting cars. Same thing, they induce that on purpose. And they're seeing, can you track? Are you having normal eye movement that way? Do you get nystagmus? Yes, good, you're normal. The test isn't done. Now they take warm water, and it's a few degrees above blood temperature, and they irrigate your ear. It's going in your ear canal. It's making your eardrum warm. It's making your middle ear space warm. And finally, it makes the lateral semicircular canal warm. It makes one of these canals warm, the one that's closest to your eardrum. It makes that one warm. And when that happens, your body's getting a message that you're turning. And you're not even turning, but your body's getting a message that it is. And that warm water irrigating your ear makes you get nystagmus in one direction. Your eyes are going, good, normal finding. Now they take water, and it's a few degrees below blood temperature. And they irrigate the ear again. Now your eardrum's getting cold, middle ear space is getting cold, that lateral semicircular canal is getting cold, and now your eyes are doing this. The other way. Good, normal finding. Induced nystagmus. We did that with warm water and cold water. Now let's do the other ear. Some of these clients walk out of the clinic puking because you've made them dizzy. When we had it on Mondays, we called it Dizzy Mondays. Okay, but it's not a pleasant test, but it's a test to see if they can induce nystagmus. And if they can, it means your balance organs are working. Good, it means your semicircular canals are functioning. ENG, electronystagmography. Okay? Another term we need to memorize for balance, because you will encounter this, the most common balance pathology is called this: benign paroxysmal vertigo, BPV. That's the ear stones I was talking about. Oh, my ear stones fell off. They made me turn my head in all kinds of directions to make the ear stones go back on top of the jelly again. Benign paroxysmal vertigo. Very common. Not dangerous. It's just a stupid nuisance. It's a drag. You know who gets it? A lot of dancers get it. Elderly people will get it. And what happens is, it's when you're turning your head or your body in a certain position. You're tying your shoes. You may be sitting on a chair and you're bending over tying your shoes, and anytime you put your body in that particular position, it's like, oh, whoa, I'm ever dizzy. Holy Moses, hang on to something. Oh, hang on. Whoa, every time I turn in that particular position, whoa, do I get dizzy. Benign paroxysmal vertigo. Your ear stones have fallen off of either your macula or either your utricle or saccule or one of the three semicircular canals. You're going to have to see an ear, nose, and throat doctor. They can do positional head maneuvers to try and get the ear stones to go back to where they should go. Now, this is weird stuff. I know, very strange. So there's two terms you need to know regarding balance. One is the test for balance disorders, electronystagmography, ENG, and the second one is BPV, benign paroxysmal vertigo, also associated with weird ear stones. Next, okay, that's all the balance I'm going to talk about, because the HIS doesn't do balance tests. You just need a passing awareness of the pieces and parts. Now let's go into the ear, where we will spend the rest of our career. Here we go. The cochlea. Greek for snail shell. It is as big as the tip of your little finger. It's about this big when you look at the tip of your finger. It's about the size of your eardrum. It's about the size of a dime. Think of a dime. That's going to be you could put a cochlea on top of a dime. Okay? The wide part would fill the whole dime, and then the skinny part would stick up like a pyramid. A cochlea. It's as big as the tip of your little finger. It has 2.5 turns in the human. 2.5 coils. It turns around 2.5 times. It's not like that in all animals. In the chinchilla, for example, the cochlea has 3.5 turns. Now the chinchilla cochlea, I'm not sure, I don't think I have a picture of it. It's not necessary. You all have heard of a chinchilla. It's a type of a rodent. People always pick on the chinchilla when they do research in hearing. The reason why they always pick on the chinchilla and not the tiger or the lion or the cat or the dog, it's always the chinchilla. Why? Because a chinchilla cochlea sticks out into the middle ear space like my fist. It's not surrounded by bone. Okay? So they always pick on the chinchilla. They poison it, or they put it with a lot of loud noise, or they do some stupid thing to it. Then they kill it, and then they cut off the cochlea and open it up to see what's going on inside. Okay? Always picking on chinchillas. Not very nice. But the human cochlea is buried in bone. And the dog and cat cochlea is buried, is surrounded by petrous portion of the temporal bone. So it's not nearly as accessible. Anyway, back to our favorite chinchilla. Their cochlea has 3.5 turns. Let's go to the notes here, okay? Read with me now, but to memorize the fact we've got a 2.5 turn cochlea. You don't need to memorize this. I couldn't care less. Just know that it's about the size of the tip of your finger. Basically the size of the tip of your pinky. Human cochlea is remarkably inaccessible, buried inside the hardest bone of the body, the petrous portion of the temporal bone, like an auger twisted hole. Note the location of the bony and membranous labyrinths. Note also the fluids inside each labyrinth. So let's look here. Pull up this slide, take a peek. Once again, all the white here is solid bone. The gray area, the light gray area is the bony labyrinth. The darker gray area is the membranous labyrinth. Again, solid bone, and here's the tunnel filled with perilymph fluid. Here's the membranous labyrinth filled with endolymph fluid. Endo, inside, peri, around. Here's the utricle and the saccule. This is their bony labyrinth surrounding them. They are membranous labyrinths. Here's the semicircular canals. They are the bony labyrinth, and inside there's the membranous labyrinth containing endolymph again. The ampullae, utricle, saccule, blah, 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 okay. Here's another picture highlighting now the membranous labyrinth. Here we highlighted the bony labyrinth. Now we're highlighting the membranous. Okay? Once again, bony labyrinth, light gray. Membranous labyrinth, dark gray. This is the hair cell region of the cochlea. These are the hair cell regions of the balance system. Your semicircular canals, utricle, and saccule. Here's the 8th nerve going to your brain. That comes from the cochlea. This is for not only the vestibular system, but also for hearing. They're twisted together. Now you're getting a little more detailed here. Looky here. Again, membranous labyrinths, bony labyrinths, but now notice that this is sort of shaped like a triangle. It's kind of wider right here, and then goes to a point. You can see sort of a triangular shape to that. We'll leave this behind. We really don't care that much about this anymore. We are going to focus on the cochlea. But notice the triangular shape of the membranous labyrinth. Look at it now, the triangular shape. So in a way, it's not really like it's a round hose inside. Really, the more accurate description is it's actually attached to one side. Here's the membranous labyrinth, and it's sort of shaped like a triangle, and it's attached to the back here. So this is bony labyrinth, membranous labyrinth. In a way, the membranous labyrinth splits the bony labyrinth in two. It splits it in two. Look at here. Bony labyrinth, membranous. And it splits the bony labyrinths into two. And you know why? Because the footplate of the stapes pushes in and out of the oval window, and it's going to move fluid this side of the bony labyrinth, which is going to essentially later bulge fluid this way, and here's the round window. Here, looking at it again, balance organs, cochlea, and look at all the nerve fibers. All the nerve fibers from the cochlea and the balance organs all come together, and here's your 8th cranial nerve, and look, your cheek nerve, your 7th facial nerve, it goes right alongside of the 8th nerve. and that goes to your brain. Many people who have eighth nerve tumor, when they get the eighth nerve tumor surgery, it ends up screwing up the seventh nerve too. And so now you have a lopsided face. In Canada, we used to have a prime minister named Jean Chrétien. Jean Chrétien. And Jean Chrétien has Bell's palsy. He's got paralysis of the seventh facial nerve. This is a hoot. Maybe I told you this last week. I can't remember. Anyway, he was a politician for years. People really liked him. And Ariana's husband probably knows who this guy was, Jean Chrétien, prime minister. And his face was like this. And he said, well, at least they cannot accuse me of talking from both sides of my mouth. It's French-Canadian guy. He's hilarious. He had a good sense of humor. Anyway, next slide. Here's a cross-section of a cat's cochlea. So here's the bottom coil, here's the middle coil, and here's the top one. Notice the triangular area. Bony labyrinth, membranous labyrinth. Bony labyrinth, membranous. Bony, membranous. Bony, membranous. Bone, whoop, okay. Here's the cochlea unrolled. So we just took the coil and we just went, wah. So this would be about 1 inch long. If you took a human cochlea and unrolled its 2.5 coils, it would be about 2.5, 3 centimeters long. About 3 times as wide as your fingernail. Now, that's this, the cochlea unrolled. And look, here's the oval window from the stapes. And here's the promontory bone. This is just a schematic. And here's the round window. So when the oval window pushes inward, this is all fluid in here, bony labyrinth, it goes around a corner. And that corner is called the helicotrema, la, 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 la. I love the name, helicotrema. Helicotrema. Anyway, so you push the fluid here, it goes around the corner and then pushes the fluid out. So if the oval window goes in, the round window, oval window in, round bulges. That's how you get a trade of movement. If the round window was not allowed to bulge, this would not be able to push in because you can't compress the fluid. So the only way for this to be able to push in is if this correspondingly goes out. Anyway, this is where the hair cells are. This is that triangular area. This is the triangular, what we're doing is just unrolling it. And you know what's really weird? At the fat end of the cochlea, the hair cell region is the narrowest. And at the skinny end of the cochlea, at the tippy top, the hair cell region is the largest. Now, remember when I told you earlier that high frequencies are represented at the fat end of the cochlea and low frequencies were represented at the tippy top? Well, remember what you learned in acoustics? Mass resonates with lows, stiffness resonates with highs. Well, guess what? This has less mass and is more stiff. That's why high frequencies stimulate this area. This area has more mass and is less stiff. That's why low frequencies stimulate hair cells there. See? Acoustics plays a part in anatomy because all parts of anatomy are pieces of physical reality and they too resonate with sound. All right, now let's get some names here and then we'll call it a day. Here's the cross section of the cochlea. This is this. Okay, we're just taking, instead of a real picture, you're looking at a schematic or something that Ted Venema drew. So instead of unrolling the cochlea and looking at it this way, now we're doing a cross section. We just took that beehive or that coil-shaped thing and we went down the middle of it. We just sliced it in half. So now you can see that this is bone surrounding the whole thing. All the gray is solid bone. Petrous portion of the temporal bone. Now you can look at the 2.5 turns. The first turn, the second turn, and the last half turn. So look at here again. Bony labyrinth, membranous. bony, membranous. In the bony labyrinth, perilymph fluid here, perilymph fluid here. Membranous labyrinth, endolymph. And look at these backward-looking C's, these weird little cups. That's where the hair cells are. That's where the hair cells, right there. And that's called the organ of Corti. All right? So the organ of Corti. So you now have the 8th nerve fibers going toward the brain, coming from the hair cells of the cochlea, which are located in the membranous labyrinths. Okay, here's a picture showing you the same thing. Stapes foot plate, oval window, here's your cochlea, the honeycomb shaped thing, and they're giving you a bit of a view. So now you can see when the stapes foot plate pushes in, the fluid is moved this way, and around this way, and around this way, and then down through a little hole called the helicotrema, and then out to bulge the round window. And the hair cells are located in the membranous labyrinths. Okay? Not in the bony labyrinths. So the membranous labyrinths in this picture are technically inaccurate, because the membranous labyrinths, you can see, get longer as you go to the top. See how this has shorter floor, longer floor, longer floor. Hair cells here, more hair cells here. So toward the skinny end of the cochlea, the membranous labyrinth actually gets wider and wider. It's back asswards to the way you'd think it would go. So pictures like this are nice for illustration, but I ask what's wrong with this picture, and it's that these membranous labyrinths are not shown to get wider and wider as you're going to the skinny tip. Same here. Here's a cross-section of the cochlea. Membrane or bony labyrinths is the dark gray, membranous is the white triangles, and they too are shown as if they get smaller as you go to the top. So you can tell that this artist did not know what he or she was doing. Okay, but again, all bone surrounding, all bone in the center, and these are labyrinths carved into the bone. We'll finish with this slide because it's now 4:30 in Springfield, Missouri, in Joplin, or in Carthage, and it's probably, what are you, in Minnesota? Same time, I would imagine, because you're straight north of Missouri, and I'm sitting up here in Canada. Anyway, so we'll finish with this slide. This is a cross-section of one of these coils. We're just looking at one coil. We're looking at one coil. We're just isolating a coil. Bony labyrinth, membranous labyrinth. This is called your scala vestibuli. Scala in Italian means stairs, coil, stairways, like a coil. This is called scala vestibuli. It's associated with the oval window. It's filled with perilymph fluid. Scala tympani on the bottom. It's associated with perilymph as well, and it bulges the round window when that moves. Here, this is called the scala media, and the scala media in the middle is where the hair cells are. This is endolymph fluid here, all endolymph here, and the hair cells are right here where I'm showing you with my cursor. Right here, hair cell, hair cell, hair cell, hair cell. Okay, and what divides the scala vestibuli from scala media is Reissner's membrane. Reissner, Herr Reissner, yeah? Okay, Reissner's membrane. And what separates the scala media from the scala tympani on the bottom is called the basilar membrane. So these are membranes you need to memorize. Basilar membrane, Reissner's membrane, scala tympani, vestibuli, scala media, scala tympani. Vestibuli, media, tympani. Vestibuli, media, Tympani. All right, I think I've bugged you enough for one day. Here's another picture, just getting, this is where we'll go next week. You're looking at it closer. Vestibuli filled with paralymph, media filled with endolymph, scala tympani filled with paralymph again, basilar membrane, Reisner's membrane. You can see the hair cells clearer here. It's a much clearer depiction of the hair cells. And next week we'll go closer, looking at the hair cells closer up. Here's further away. This is the organ of Corti. We're going to go closer, and we're going to be really looking at the organ of Corti, all this kind of jazz. This is my view of the organ of Corti. I always draw things simpler. Inner hair cells, outer hair cells. These are efferent. These are afferent. We'll learn all about this stuff. Stuff and things and stuff. Really, here's a scala media. Here's hair cells. Closer, here's hair cells, inner hair cells, outer hair cells, damaged outer hair cells, inner hair cells still pretty good, inner hair cells, outer hair cells. We'll look at all the stuff next week, and we shall play. All right? Fun and games, games and fun. Here's a hair of a human. Here's a hair cell, and it has 100 hairs on it. So you're looking at the hair on the wart and the frog and the log and the hole in the bottom of the sea. Okay? We are talking tiny. And I hope this gives you an idea why they can't do surgery on an ear. Because the parts are too small. You just can't do it. A scalpel's too big. You can't fix this stuff. It's way too small. But if you look at the size. Here's a bug. This is just for fun now. Here's a bug under an electron microscope. And in its claw, it's got a gear. Now look at the gear. I'll bring it closer. When you look at the teeth of the gear, you'll notice a tiny white dot. Bring it closer. That's a hair cell. And these are 100 hairs all clumped together. So we are talking small, okay? That's the stuff of the inner ear. So the inner ear is by far and away the coolest part of the entire ear. That's why we spend 2 solid weeks on the anatomy of the inner ear, and then 2 solid weeks on the physiology of the outer ear, because this is where it all happens. Anyway, that's it for anatomy for today. I will upload this Zoom session as a YouTube, and for those of you who can watch it later, have fun. I will also talk to Ms. Kraus, Rebecca Kraus, about the midterm. Thank you for bringing that up to me. I'll be sure to talk to her about that, and I'll send you all an email or a reminder or whatever. Things and stuff, stuff and things. Okay? Any questions? It's all easy, right? Got it all memorized. No problem.
Love it. Learning lots.
Sure. Good stuff. That's the idea. All right. Cheers. See ya.
See you, man.